My sister pulled out my stitches to see if my surgery was real or for attention. What happened next made her regret ever touching me. "Don't you dare move, or I swear I'll rip every single one out." Brielle's voice was ice cold, her fingernails digging into the edges of my surgical wound. "I'm going to prove once and for all that you're making this up for sympathy. You've lost your mind. Those are actual stitches holding actual incisions together." I screamed, trying to shove her off as blood began soaking through the white gauze. "Drama queen, that's all you've ever been," my sister snarled, yanking harder. "Hi, my name is Kennedy Lawson. Today, I'm sharing something I never imagined I'd have to tell anyone. Before we continue, please hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe for more real-life experiences. I never believed I'd have to completely remove my own sister from my life. But when someone physically tries to tear open your surgical wounds just to win an argument, you run out of alternatives pretty fast. What began as normal sister drama spiraled into assault charges, protective orders, and a family meltdown that shattered everything we thought we knew about each other. Brielle and I were never exactly best friends growing up. She's 4 years older than me, and from my earliest memories, she treated my existence like a personal insult. Our parents, Thomas and Carol Lawson, did their best to be fair. But Brielle always twisted everything into some competition I didn't realize I was even in. "Why does Kennedy get a new backpack?" "There's nothing wrong with mine," she'd whine, even though her backpack had broken zippers and torn straps. "Sweetheart, we bought you a new one last month," Dad would explain calmly. "It's Kennedy's turn now. She's playing you both. She probably ripped hers on purpose for attention." I was 7 years old. I barely understood what attention-seeking meant. This became our pattern straight through high school. When I made the honor roll, Brielle accused me of cheating off classmates. When I landed the lead role in our school's production of Grease, she spread rumors that I'd flirted with Mr. Patterson, our drama teacher, to get the part. When I started dating Justin during my sophomore year, she tried convincing him I was secretly hooking up with half the basketball team. "Your sister has serious problems," Justin told me after Brielle cornered him in the parking lot one day. "Like needs professional help kind of problems." "She's just overprotective," I replied, still defending her behavior. "She'll mature eventually." Spoiler, she absolutely did not. I escaped to college in Colorado, partly for their excellent graphic design program, but mostly to get away from Brielle's endless accusations and sabotage. For 4 incredible years, I could simply exist without constantly watching my back. I graduated with a degree in graphic design, landed a position at a boutique agency in Denver, and created a life completely separate from my sister's chaos. Those college years showed me what healthy sibling relationships actually looked like. My roommate Olivia would FaceTime her sister twice a week, laughing about silly things and encouraging each other through midterm stress. Sure, they bickered sometimes, but never with the vicious cruelty I'd grown up with. It was simultaneously enlightening and heartbreaking. Then everything changed when I turned 27. The pain started as a dull ache in my lower abdomen. Initially, I brushed it off as stress from a demanding client campaign. But when I collapsed right in the middle of a presentation to potential investors, my coworker rushed me straight to the ER. "You have endometriosis," Dr. Morrison explained after conducting several tests. "It's progressed significantly. We need to schedule surgery to remove the endometrial tissue and cysts that have developed." I called my parents from the hospital room. They arrived within 3 hours, both terrified. Mom fussed over my blankets and interrogated every nurse who walked through the door, while Dad held my hand and kept telling me everything would be okay. "Should we tell Brielle?" Mom asked carefully, knowing this was touchy territory. "Absolutely not," I said without hesitation. "Please, I can't handle her drama right now." Mom looked wounded but understood. "She's still your sister, sweetheart. She cares about you, even if she shows it strangely." "She told everyone I was faking a sprained ankle when I was 13, Mom, even after you took me for x-rays that showed the bone chip. Remember? And last Thanksgiving, she announced to the entire family that I was pretending to have the flu to avoid helping with cleanup, while I was literally throwing up in the bathroom." Dad squeezed my hand. "We won't mention anything if that's what you want. Just focus on getting healthy." The surgery was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Dr. Morrison explained it would be laparoscopic, several tiny incisions instead of one large cut. I'd need at least 3 weeks off work for recovery, possibly longer depending on what they discovered during the procedure. The operation went smoothly. They removed substantial endometrial tissue and 2 cysts the size of golf balls. I woke up groggy but grateful, with 4 small incisions across my belly held together with surgical stitches. The pathology results came back clear, Dr. Morrison told me during her rounds. But we removed quite a bit of damaged tissue. You need to take recovery seriously. These stitches must stay in place for 10 to 14 days minimum. I spent 3 nights in the hospital before being released to my apartment. My friend Cassidy had volunteered to stay with me for the first week, helping with basic tasks since I could barely stand without pain shooting through my abdomen. You need anything else before I head to my shift? Cassidy asked on the 4th morning. I'm fine. Mom and Dad are bringing groceries this afternoon. Good. And remember, rest actually means rest. Don't try being a hero. About an hour after Cassidy left for work, my doorbell rang. Assuming my parents had arrived early, I slowly shuffled to the door, pressing one hand against my stomach to support the tender surgical sites. I opened the door to find Brielle standing there. Surprise, she announced, pushing past me into the apartment. Mom finally admitted you had some supposed surgery. I had to see this performance for myself. My blood ran cold. Brielle, what are you doing here? How did you even get my address? Mom's emergency contact folder. Not exactly Fort Knox. She looked around my apartment with barely disguised contempt. So where are these mysterious incisions? Show me. I'm not showing you anything. You need to leave right now. She laughed, that cruel mocking sound I remembered from childhood. Classic Kennedy. Always playing the victim. Never any actual proof. What was it this time? Endo something? Sounds completely made up. It's endometriosis, Brielle. It's a legitimate medical condition. Millions of women suffer from it. I had real surgery. Sure you did. Just like that real sprained ankle and that real flu. You've been pulling this attention-grabbing nonsense since we were kids. I was exhausted, hurting, and suddenly furious beyond words. You know what? Fine. You want to see? I carefully lifted my shirt just enough to reveal the bandages covering my abdomen. Satisfied now? But Brielle wasn't satisfied with just looking. Before I could react, she grabbed the corner of one bandage and ripped it completely off. I screamed as the adhesive tore at my healing skin. Brielle, stop. What are you doing? Makeup and fake stitches, she muttered, leaning closer to examine the exposed incision. Has to be. Nobody would actually go through surgery just for attention, would they? Then she did something I still have nightmares about. She pinched one of the surgical stitches between her fingernails and pulled. The pain was beyond description. I felt the stitch tear through healing tissue, blood immediately bubbling up from the reopened wound. I screamed and tried pushing her away, but I was weak from surgery and she had all the leverage. Stop moving or I'll rip them all out at once, Brielle hissed, her fingers pressing into my surgical wound. I'm proving you're faking this whole thing for attention. You're insane. Those are real stitches holding Rayol incisions closed. I screamed, trying to shove her away as blood started seeping through the other bandages. Drama queen. Always have been, always will be. The apartment door suddenly burst open. My parents stood frozen in the doorway, taking in the scene before them, me bleeding and sobbing, Brielle's hands literally inside my bandages, pulling at surgical stitches. Brielle. Dad roared, crossing the room in 3 massive strides. He physically pulled her away from me while Mom rushed to my side. Thomas, she's bleeding, Mom said, her voice shaking uncontrollably. Oh God, there's so much blood. Call 911 right now. She's faking it, Brielle insisted, even as Dad held her back with both arms. It's fake blood. Fake stitches. All of it. There's blood under your fingernails, Dad said quietly, and something in his tone made Brielle look down at her hands. Her face drained of all color. The ambulance arrived within 8 minutes. The paramedics took one look at the torn stitches and partially opened incision and immediately began working to stop the bleeding. I was rushed back to the hospital, where Dr. Morrison had to perform emergency repair surgery. You're fortunate she only managed to completely tear one stitch, Dr. Morrison said afterward, her expression grave. anymore, and we could have been dealing with serious complications, infection, internal bleeding, damaged organs. Who did this to you? My sister, I whispered, still in shock. We need to file a police report. This is assault, Kennedy. Medical assault. The police arrived while I was still in recovery. Brielle was arrested at my apartment, still insisting I was somehow faking everything, even when the officers showed her photographs of my medical records and surgical documentation. My parents were absolutely devastated. How could she do this? Mom kept repeating, tears streaming down her face. How could she hurt you like this? But I wasn't surprised. This was just the inevitable conclusion of years of escalating behavior that everyone had dismissed as sibling rivalry or Brielle being protective. The assault charges were just the beginning of Brielle's downfall. During the investigation, police uncovered something deeply disturbing. Brielle had been illegally accessing my medical records through her position at a healthcare billing company. She'd been tracking my doctor appointments, test results, even my prescription history for years. This is a severe HIPAA violation, the prosecutor explained to me. She could face federal charges on top of the assault. Her employer terminated her immediately upon discovering the breach. Not only had she violated patient privacy laws, but she'd used company resources to essentially stalk me. They had to notify all their clients about the security breach, and several threatened to cancel their contracts. The investigation revealed Brielle had accessed not just my records, but medical files of several other people she suspected of faking illnesses. Former colleagues came forward with stories about her obsessive behavior, how she'd spend lunch breaks researching medical conditions to catch people lying. Her supervisor admitted they'd received complaints about her paranoid accusations, but hadn't taken them seriously enough. Then came the civil lawsuit from her apartment complex. In her rush to get to my place and expose me, she'd left her bathtub running. It overflowed, causing significant water damage to 3 apartments below hers. Without employment and facing mounting legal expenses, she couldn't pay for the repairs. During the criminal trial, Brielle's defense attorney tried arguing that she genuinely believed she was helping me by exposing what she thought was self-harm disguised as surgery. But when the prosecutor showed the jury my complete medical records, surgical photographs, and the extent of endometriosis they'd removed, that defense completely collapsed. The defendant didn't call for medical help when she saw blood, the prosecutor pointed out. She didn't take her sister to a doctor to verify her concerns. She forcibly removed surgical stitches from healing incisions, causing additional trauma that required emergency surgery to repair. Character witnesses painted a disturbing picture of Brielle's history. Former friends testified about her paranoid accusations. Ex-boyfriends described her obsessive behavior and tendency to manufacture drama. A former roommate revealed that Brielle had once accused her of faking lupus, even after accompanying her to specialist appointments. The jury deliberated for less than 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts, assault, stalking, and violation of medical privacy laws. At sentencing, Brielle finally seemed to grasp the reality of what she'd done. She tried apologizing, claiming she was starting therapy for her issues, but the judge remained unmoved. Ms. Lawson, you systematically stalked and harassed your sister for years, culminating in an assault that could have killed her if infection had developed. Your actions demonstrate complete disregard for her physical and emotional well-being. I sentence you to 4 years in prison, followed by 5 years supervised probation. Brielle broke down sobbing as the bailiffs led her away. Mom tried reaching for her, but Dad held her back firmly. No, he said with quiet authority. She needs to face the consequences of her actions. The family fallout was immediate and brutal. Some relatives thought we'd been too harsh, that we should have handled it within the family. Others were horrified we'd allowed it to escalate so far without serious intervention. My Aunt Margaret, Mom's sister, was particularly vocal in her criticism. You're destroying this family over a mistake, she told me during a tense phone call. Sisters fight. It's normal. She tore open my surgical wounds. Aunt Margaret. That's not a fight. That's assault. She was concerned about you. She was trying to help. She was trying to prove I was lying about having surgery. She illegally accessed my private medical records. She stalked me for years. How is any of that normal or helpful? Aunt Margaret stopped speaking to us after that conversation. Several cousins who believed blood should be thicker than restraining orders followed suit. But I found unexpected support from others, including Brielle's former best friend, Tiffany. "I'm so sorry I never spoke up," Tiffany told me over coffee weeks later. "I witnessed the warning signs for years, the way she talked about you, the obsession, the conspiracy theories about everyone faking illnesses. I should have warned you sooner. We all should have done something earlier," I admitted. With Brielle in prison, I finally had space to heal, both physically and emotionally. The second surgery had gone well, though I now had additional scarring from the emergency repair. I started working with a trauma therapist to process everything, joined a support group for family violence survivors, and slowly rebuilt my sense of safety. My therapist, Dr. Chen, helped me understand that Brielle's behavior wasn't my fault, that her delusions about me had nothing to do with anything I'd done or failed to do. We worked through years of gaslighting and psychological abuse that I'd internalized as normal sibling conflict. My parents struggled even more than I did. Mom especially blamed herself for not recognizing how sick Brielle truly was, for making excuses for her behavior over the years. "I failed both my daughters," she said during one particularly difficult family therapy session. "I failed Brielle by not getting her professional help, and I failed you by not protecting you from her. You couldn't have known it would escalate like this," I told her, though part of me wondered if that was entirely true. There had been so many red flags over the years. Brielle served 22 months before being released on parole. One of her parole conditions was zero contact with me, direct or indirect. She wasn't permitted within 500 feet of my home, workplace, or anywhere she knew I'd be. She also had to undergo mandatory psychiatric treatment. The last I heard, she was living in a supervised group home 2 states away, working at a distribution center, and attending court-ordered therapy sessions. She'd sent letters to our parents claiming she understood now how mentally ill she'd been, how her paranoid delusions had driven her to hurt the person she claimed to love. "She wants to apologize to you," Mom told me hesitantly one afternoon. "Through her therapist. Not directly. She knows she can't contact you personally." "No," I said firmly. "I'm glad she's getting help, but I don't want to hear from her. Not now. Not ever." Some people think I'm being too harsh. They don't understand that forgiveness isn't always possible, that some betrayals cut too deep to heal. They didn't feel her fingers pulling at their stitches, didn't experience the terror of being attacked when they were already vulnerable and recovering, didn't live with decades of gaslighting, false accusations, and psychological torture. I've built a good life without my sister in it. I have a thriving career. I recently made creative director at my design agency. I have a loving fiancé named Andrew who stood beside me through the trial and its aftermath, and I have a chosen family of friends who actually support and believe in me. My endometriosis is managed with ongoing treatment and medication. My scars, both physical and emotional, have faded with time, though they'll never disappear completely. Sometimes I wonder what Brielle's life might have been if she'd gotten professional help earlier, if her delusions and paranoia had been treated before they consumed her entirely. But I can't dwell on what-ifs and alternate timelines. I can only focus on my own healing and the boundaries I've established to protect myself. My parents visit Brielle occasionally. They don't discuss it much, respecting my wishes not to know details, but I can see the pain in their eyes, the grief for the daughter they lost to mental illness and criminal behavior. They're in therapy too, working through their own trauma and guilt. "Do you think she'll ever get better?" Mom asked once, not really expecting an answer. "I hope so," I said honestly. "For her sake, not mine. But getting better doesn't mean getting back into my life. That door is closed and locked forever." The physical scar from where Brielle tore my stitch is slightly raised and darker than the surrounding skin, a permanent reminder of that horrible day. But I don't see it as just a mark of trauma anymore. It's proof of my survival, evidence of my strength, and a warning to never ignore red flags again. I share my story not for sympathy or pity, but as a cautionary tale. Family violence is real, even when it doesn't look like what we expect. It can come from sisters who claim to love you, from people who share your DNA and your childhood memories. And sometimes the only way to truly heal is to cut those toxic ties completely, regardless of what anyone else thinks you should do. The question I leave you with is this: how many warning signs would it take for you to believe someone in your family was genuinely dangerous? Would you wait until they literally tore you open? Or would you protect yourself before it reached that point? Looking back now, I can see the pattern so clearly. Brielle's behavior escalated gradually over decades, starting with small lies and false accusations, progressing to sabotage and stalking, and ultimately culminating in physical violence. At each stage, people made excuses. She's just jealous. Sisters fight. She'll grow out of it. She means well. But she didn't mean well, and she didn't grow out of it. I've learned that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes shared history isn't enough. Sometimes blood relation isn't enough to justify keeping someone in your life who actively harms you. Dr. Chen helped me understand that cutting off Brielle wasn't cruel or vindictive, it was self-preservation. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, she told me during one session. Especially when that person is the one who lit the match. Andrew asks me sometimes if I ever miss having a sister. The honest answer is complicated. I miss the idea of having a sister, someone to share memories with, someone who understands your childhood in ways friends never can. But I don't miss Brielle specifically. I don't miss the constant anxiety, the accusations, the feeling of always being under surveillance and suspicion. What I've gained in Brielle's absence is worth more than what I lost. Peace of mind, genuine relationships built on trust, and the freedom to live without constantly defending my reality. My friend Cassidy, who stayed with me after the surgery, has become like a sister to me, the kind of sister I always wished Brielle could be. We support each other, celebrate each other's successes, and when we disagree, we talk it through like adults. It's shown me that family isn't always about biology. I still have moments of anger, usually late at night when I can't sleep, thinking about all the years Brielle stole from me with her paranoia and accusations. I get frustrated that she got only 4 years for what she did, though I understand the legal system has its limitations. But mostly, I feel grateful. Grateful that I survived. Grateful that the assault wasn't worse. Grateful for the people who believed me and stood by me. Grateful for the life I've built in the aftermath. If you're reading this and seeing yourself in my story, if you have a family member who constantly accuses you of lying, who sabotages your relationships, who makes you question your own reality, please take this as your sign. You don't have to wait until it becomes physical violence. You're allowed to set boundaries. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose yourself. Your mental health and physical safety matter more than family expectations or what other people think you should tolerate. I'm Kennedy Lawson, and this is my story. Thank you for listening, and remember to like, share, and subscribe for more real experiences. Stay safe out there, and trust your instincts. They're usually right.